happened. First, I liked Bob, and I didn't want to come down too hard on him. He had looked so nervous during the meeting when we reviewed his document that I feared he might even cry. Because everyone liked him so much, I also worried that if he did cry, everyone would think I was an abusive jerk. Second, unless his resume and references were bogus, he'd done great work in the past. Maybe he'd been distracted by something at home or was unused to our way of doing things. Whatever the reason, I convinced myself that he'd surely return to the performance level that had gotten him the job. Third, I could fix the document myself for now, and that would be faster than teaching him how to rewrite it. Let's first deal with how this affected Bob. Remember, he knew his work wasn't good, and so my false praise just messed with his mind. It allowed him to deceive himself into thinking that he could continue along the same course, which he did. By failing to confront the problem, I'd removed the incentive for him to try harder and lulled him into thinking he'd be fine. It's brutally hard to tell people when they are screwing up. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. That's because you're not a sadist. You don't want that person or the rest of the team to think you're a jerk. Plus, you've been told since you learned to talk, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Now all of a sudden it's your job to say it. You've got to undo a lifetime of training. Guidance is hard. To make matters worse, I kept making the same mistake over and over for 10 months. As you probably know, for every piece of subpar work you accept, for every missed deadline you let slip, you begin to feel resentment and then anger. You no longer just think the work is bad, you think the person is bad. This makes it harder to have an even-keeled conversation. You start to avoid talking to the person at all. And of course, the impact of my behavior with Bob didn't stop with him. Others on the team wondered why I accepted such poor work, but, following my lead, they too tried to cover for him. They would fix mistakes he'd made and do or redo his work, usually when they should have been sleeping. Covering for people is sometimes necessary for a short period of time, say if somebody is going through a crisis. But when it goes on too long, it starts to take a toll. People whose work had been exceptional started to get sloppy. We missed key deadlines. Knowing why Bob's colleagues were late, I didn't give them too hard a time. Then they began to wonder if I knew the difference between great and mediocre. Perhaps I didn't even take missed deadlines seriously. As is often the case when people are not sure if the quality of what they are doing is appreciated, the results began to suffer, and so did morale. As I faced the prospect of losing my team, I realized I couldn't put it off any longer. I invited Bob to have coffee with me. He expected to have a nice chat, but instead, after a few false starts, I fired him. Now we were both huddled miserably over our muffins and lattes. After an excruciating silence, Bob pushed his chair back, metal screeching on marble, and looked at me straight in the eye. "Why didn't you tell me?" As that question was rolling around in my mind with no good answer, he asked me a second question. "Why didn't anyone tell me? I thought you all cared about me." It was the low point of my career. I had made a series of mistakes, and Bob was taking the fall. Not only was my earlier praise a head fake, I'd never given Bob any criticism. I'd also never asked him to give me feedback, which might have allowed him to talk things through and perhaps find a solution. Worst of all, I'd failed to create a culture in which Bob's peers could do him the courtesy of telling him when he was going off the rails. The team's cohesion was cracking, and it showed in our results. Lack of either helpful praise or criticism had absolutely disastrous effects on the team and on our outcomes. You can draw a straight line from lack of guidance to a dysfunctional team that gets poor results. It wasn't just too late for Bob, it was too late for the whole company. Juice failed not too long after I fired Bob. Google, free at work. It was 2004, and I needed a job, so I called a classmate from business school, Cheryl Sandberg.